Hello Virgo, my name's Uma. This is your horoscope for the full moon and Mars conjunction in Gemini. Please be gentle with me. I've got a Gemini moon. Hello Virgo, welcome back. Yes, I am feeling ultra specially moved by the current astrological weather, the current planet configurations, and the impending full moon in Gemini that we're going to enjoy on the 8th of December at 8 minutes past 3 p.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. So the 2nd of December, blanket statement, that's the good, not the 2nd, the 7th. The 7th of December is the perfect time for us to look at this, Virgo. It is not without its severe difficulty. Let's face it. First of all, let's think about Gemini. Let's think about what you know of that sign and what they have to offer, and the contribution that Geminis invite to our experience. They represent the twins, yes? There's definitely a duality there right off the bat. There's a conversation, there's information free flow, there's language, sharing in knowledge there. They're a mutable sign, like you, Virgo. So in that way that there is a malleability to your makeup. We think of Virgo, we think of clay, we think of malleable earth. We can think about that in terms of Gemini too, malleable intellect, malleable understanding. There's a real want and a will to understand the world around them. So couple that with the energy of a full moon. A full moon brings about a great release of emotions, a great spotlight on our body, our physical access to feeling the heart. Also, coupled with that is this conjunction with Mars. Now, Mars has been retrograde in Gemini, I think since the 31st of October was when they stationed retrograde, which means that from our perspective, it's like cars driving next to each other. Think of it that way. They're both going forwards, but one's going a little faster, so the other one looks like it's going back. That's probably a really easy way to sort of visualize what is meant by retrograde. The planet doesn't physically move backwards. From our perspective and our pace, it does look as though it might be. So in the spirituality of that, retrograde periods are a time of the reins being pulled up, a time to sort of go over, to do over, to work with a feeling of holding back in a sense. Incredibly difficult to do with Mars. Mars is the agitator. Mars moves around the zodiac in a 2-year period. So to be 7 months in one sign, as this will be, or 7 months in Gemini by the time it leaves, is incredibly frustrating. And with the aggravation comes a propensity to rage. Now, it's very important that we invite rage as an emotion into our systems, and that we can actively express, perhaps in a Gemini conversational way, why we are angry, why this injustice, perhaps, that we are witnessing is affecting us so. There's no sense in trying to love and light the intense emotions away. That's not how this stuff works. I can definitely understand how it works for other people, but in this land of queer astrology, I'm here to say to you that you've got a lot to be angry about, and that's okay. You've got a lot to get off your chest. You've got a lot to express at this time. Things haven't been fair. It's very difficult to be an individual who's interested in this kind of work and this kind of healing, and looking at the beautiful configurations of the planets and the majesty of the cards, all the while living in a place that is actively oppressive of myself and folks that I care about. I'm speaking your experience through myself, Virgo, so you can identify with what I'm saying. It's so difficult to time and again be met with these crescendos of violence and ignorance in this lifetime. It can be incredibly debilitating for our sense of safety, for our sense of welcome on this planet as well. So as these things continually in repetition present themselves at these moments of full moon emotional vibrancy, at this moment of Mars, the aggressor, being attached and wound up in that full moon, I can imagine that things might be really bubbling to a head for you right now. For you, my lovely Virgo risings, Gemini rules your 10th house, which is your most public self. It's the part of you that is most visible, and it has a lot to do with your legacy and the way that you are perceived by other folks. So at this time, with this Mars in this slow sojourn and backwards and forwards in your 10th house, I wouldn't feel any sense of guilt if folks had been like, you've been really angry lately. What I would ask of you is to figure out the appropriate conversation, the appropriate way of expressing that anger. Go back to Gemini and think about that in terms of what you have in common with Gemini individuals. This is your 10th house, and you may have planets in there too. That's another thing to consider, that whenever these transits happen, if they trigger particular planets in our natal chart, there's an emphasis on that action, which is why I mentioned that my moon placement, my emotions, is in Gemini at 19 degrees. So this is all happening through me. But this is for you as well, Virgo. This is your public self. So I can imagine that there could potentially be inspiration involved in this too. Perhaps you're thinking to yourself, what is my life going to look like from here on in? How am I going to structure my legacy? What do I wish to put forward as my life's work in some way? And this Mars energy back and forth has been like inspiration, I'm pulling it back. Inspiration, I'm pulling it back. But what I can see in this chart is I can really see that there's a lot of anxiety attached to this. And sometimes we wear our emotions on our sleeve, and it's up to the rest of us to witness that and to provide the appropriate safe space in order for those emotions to be expressed. So I don't say any of this to silence you, Virgo, is I guess what I'm trying to get at. I don't wish for you to feel I've got to, rein it in. It's written all over my face that I'm so angry. You've got a right to be angry. A lot of us have a right to be angry. The ones that probably have less of a right to be angry are the ones spraying their friggin' anger anyway. And, the last bastions of the old systems of this life and this culture, the oppressors, the patriarchy, this whole structure that is built for them to succeed and for us to have nothing and little and to feel subservient. We can see the hairline fractures in these systems crumbling, can't we? But now, as a collective, we have to bear witness time and again to this aggressive attempt to subjugate us once more. And so this is something that I could imagine, Virgo, is very difficult for you to suppress and for you to hold back. And when you're met with examples or signifiers of those oppressive systems in your life, I could imagine that there would be an activation of anger there for you. So I will bring it back to the idea of yes, and you're right to have it, and that's okay. What conversation? How are you going to articulate this? That would be the question. If we look at the tarot, it's the 9 of Swords that represents the second decan of Gemini. So if we split Gemini into 3 bits, the second one is where this lunation's playing out. The Moon and Mars at 16 degrees of Gemini. This is the 9 of Swords. This card also represents Mars in Gemini energy. The system of one of the schools of thought on translating the tarot over time was the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And the woman who actually drew these incredible images, Pamela Coleman Smith, was a part of that school of thought. And so in that way, there's a lot of subliminal unconscious imagery attached to the zodiac in these cards. And so Mars, the energy of the planet in Gemini, is a full, clear representation in this illustration. We can see the worry, can't we? We can see the fear of looking backwards, the fear of looking forwards, the repetition of those swords, those thoughts, time and again, up at night. This is difficult energy to work with. And I think in a lot of ways, if this is really hitting you really hard, Virgo, and I would absolutely not reprimand you for that in the slightest, but if you are struggling, it might be a really good time to speak to someone who is a professional, to speak to a therapist at this time, to get some of this internal conversation out, because it can't evolve in there. And you can see when it banks up, when those thoughts bank up and up and up and up and up and up, it's a cage. There's no room to get out. It can be quite detrimental and quite damaging to the psyche for you to have to be consistently met with that worry time and again. So if this is manifesting for you publicly, 1, get therapy. 2, allow yourself the emotion, allow yourself the rage. You're entitled to the way that you feel right now, particularly with the oppressive systems that are showing up time and again on a global, endless doom scroll. You can't read a paper, you can't bear witness to any form of media or interaction or exchange and not have another story of horror come up because of the old systems of governance and oppression. This is a very visible house for you, Virgo. You're allowed to wear this on your sleeve, this worry. It would be finding the right communication, the right avenues of conversation to deal with some of this. I think another bit of advice that I've given to everyone would be to really lay low at this moon if you can possibly afford it. The 7th of December, think about it. Don't go out, stay at home, limit your interactions with folks that annoy you. Might be a really good bit of advice as well, because everyone has a birth chart. Everyone is a lovely sacred speck of stardust, even those personalities that we detest. And so they're all feeling this energy in some way, in some activation on their chart. This Mars conjunct full moon vibe is universal. So as a diligent Virgo, who, remember, is represented by the Hermit in the tarot, I reckon you can reserve your hermiting rights and stay in on this lunation. And again, not to silence you, not to take any of the impetus of your rage away from you. You're absolutely entitled to that rage, my darling. But just for your own comfort, it might be better to stay in if you can possibly afford it. Yeah, it's tough stuff. And as a mutable sign, so think the mutable signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius and Pisces. That configuration in particular might be feeling the harsher effects of this lunation because of the 90 degrees square aspects that could be playing out in the chart. So extra special care for you at this time, Virgo. Be your beautiful, healing, diligent, grounded self. Know your limits and find constructive ways to express some of that anger. I'm going to pull you some intuitive tarot. Not everybody's got some, but you're worth it, babe. Stunning. Queen of Pentacles, the Chariot, Strength. Yeah. There's a real sense of protection with these 3 cards, isn't there? You can see that sort of beautiful, bountiful, familial kind of feeling. There's a caretaking nature to these images. We've got the Chariot right in the center, which is big Cancer energy. So think about the sign Cancer. Think about their ability to approach emotions and their ability to balance the light and the shadow of those exchanges. So that centrifugal force, I hope I'm saying that word right, that ability to move ahead, forwards, and approach emotion is because of this balance. And also the Strength card speaks to a very similar topic. The Strength card is this figure embodied, this beautiful figure whose strength and courage and ability to tame this lion, not with violence, not with force, not with anger, not with oppression, but with an incredibly feminine, powerful, quiet, yielding strength. Gentility is a word that we don't hear very much these days. And it's funny because I'm reminded of, is it Mary Poppins? Your sweet gentility is crystal clear. I don't know why I thought of that, but that's what I think. At this, gentility. Julie Andrews. Oh God, this reading's gone the wrong way. You understand what I mean, though, don't you? You've got so much to give, Virgo, and you've got so much grounding and care and courage all at the same time, and that's very specific to you. And I can see that playing out beautifully in a Virgo chart. And so, as we experience this feeling, remember to balance that darkness with a little light, and to find the appropriate avenues to express that rage. All right. I love you very much, Virgo. I really do. Thank you for being here with me and liking and subscribing to my channel. Thank you for sharing the work with those you think that might need it at this time. That's been really, really helpful. I've made a lot of great new friends over this past month. And also head to umaruby.com and book yourself a session to get your birth chart read. Do it. December. Much love to you. I'll be with you in 2 weeks for the new moon in Capricorn. So we'll speak then. Bye.